Dear students, today we shall discuss about the next unit, that is cost and production analysis. Let us start with the production analysis, the concepts under production analysis. Later we shall move to the cost function. So here we will be discussing about the different concepts under production, like what is a production, then in that the total average and marginal product. What do you mean by total product, average and marginal product, law of variable proportions, and the different curves that we will be discussing here with respect to quantity, that is production, as well as cost. So that is isoquant and isocost curves, then least cost factor combination, then returns to scale, economics and diseconomics, the difference of these two, and technological progress and production function. So later we will be discussing about cost function. So to start with, now let us try to understand what is production. Production is the process of transformation of inputs into goods and services of utility to consumers and or to the producers. That is, production implies provision of goods and services, often described as commodities. That is, in technical sense, production is the transformation of resources into commodities over time and or on space. To put it simply, production is the act of converting or transforming into output. That is, the act of production is technically carried out by a firm. That is, a firm where a firm is a business unit which undertakes the activity of transforming inputs into outputs of goods or services. In the production process, a firm combines various inputs in different quantities and proportions to produce different levels of outputs. Production is a flow concept and it is measured as a rate of output per unit of time. So this is about production. What is production? Now let us understand what is a production function. Or in a simpler way, it can also be called as it's a process of creation of value or wealth to a product or service. Like such process of adding value may occur by change in form or by change in place or by change in hands. That is, production of goods include all tangible goods such as furniture, house, machine, food, car, television, etc. And services include intangible items like banking, education, management, consultancy, transportation, etc. So in both the sectors we carry out some function. Now let us understand what is a production function. It is called as the rate of output of a commodity. Functionally depends on the quantity of inputs used per unit of the time. That is, the technological physical relationship between inputs and outputs is referred to as a production function. That is, the process that is involved in converting or transforming the raw material into finished good, that we call as production function. Basically, production function is an engineering concept, but it is widely used in business economies for studying production behavior. The production function is the name given to the relationship between rates of input of productive services and the rate of output of product. It is the economist summary of technical knowledge, and the different inputs that we are going to use here are for transforming the raw material into finished good or technology, fixed and variable input, factors of production like land, labor, capital, enterprise, and the place where we do all these activities, so that we call as an organization. So that is, a production function refers to the physical relationship between use of inputs that we call as factors of production and resulting output of a product. A production function is a relationship between inputs and output, and where we carry out some technical methods in here, and production function includes all such technically efficient methods, and it is defined as technologically efficient relationship between inputs and outputs over a given period of time with a given set of technology and given period of time, if we can convert an input into output, that we call as production function. And the definition of this is, a production function refers to the functional relationship under the given technology between physical rates of input and output of a firm per unit of time, and it can be represented as in a mathematical form as quantity that is produced is equal to function of A, B, C, D and N and T, that is they are called as the factors. To what extent you are using these factors, that determines the production function. That is Q represents the physical quantity of output or commodity produced per unit of time, and F denotes functional relationship between A, B, C and D till N, that is they represent the quantities of various inputs, that is productive factors per employed time period. And T transfers, or it refers to the prevailing state of technology or know-how, that is it is placed on the T just to indicate the technology is assumed to be constant. Now let us understand the classification of production function. Production function with one variable and production function with two variables, that is by keeping constant all other remaining variables, by considering only one variable, maybe say for example labor, we will be discussing the production function, and by two variables labor and the demand or supply of that is the two variables. Now let us try to understand the attributes of production function. For a clear understanding of the concept of production function, its following attributes should be carefully noted. The first one is flow concept and the physical production function, state of technology and inputs. To start with the production function with one variable input, we have to understand these attributes. Now let us discuss what is the first attribute, that is flow concept. A production function is a flow concept. It relates to the flow of inputs and the resulting flows of output of a commodity during a period of time. Here time is taken to be functional or operational time period. And the second attribute is physical production function, is a technical relationship between inputs and outputs expressed in physical terms and or in terms of monetary units such as rupee or dollar. And state of technology and inputs, that implies that the production of a firm depends on the state of technology and inputs, that is technology refers to the sum total of knowledge of the mean and methods of producing goods and services. It is the society's knowledge concerning the industrial and agricultural arts. Now let us understand, so what is this production function with one variable input. So again this we will be discussing in two different time frames, that is one in short run and one in long run. In short run production, it has to be optimized with one variable input. Consider a situation where there are two inputs, one is the capital which is constant and the labor which can be varied. By keeping capital constant, if a labor is increased to increase the output, the ratio in which these two inputs are used will also change. Therefore, any change can be manifested only through a change in labor input only. So that is why this is called as production function with one variable. Usually we consider labor factor. Why? Because the requirement or need of labor tend to vary. Such a production function is termed as variable proportion production function. It is essentially a short run production function. The short run production shows the maximum output, that is that a firm can produce when only one of its inputs can be varied, other inputs remaining fixed. So that we call as Q is equal to function of L and K, where L is a labor, K is the input, that is your capital. K is called as capital, your investment. where the total product here is a function of labor, assuming capital as fixed and labor as variable. So we can write as total production, that is TPL, with respect to L, labor, is equal to function of L and K, and average production with respect to labor is equal to total production by the number of units of labor consumed. If a labor is fixed on the in the short run, average product can be similarly expressed as APK, that is AP, average production at with some capital is equal to total production by the units of capital used. And marginal product is defined as additional change in total output to unit change in variable input. So thus the managerial product of labor would be MPL is equal to change in total product by change in labor. So this we call as law of variable proportion. So here you can see we have some example here. If you keep on changing the total product, no, so with the number of units of labor, no, with 1 unit of labor, if we can produce 20 products, then with 2 labors we can produce 50 units of product, and with the 390 like that. So then the difference, no, we assume as marginal product, and if we calculate the average, so we will be getting different products. So that is the law of variable proportion states that this is the modern version of law of diminishing marginal returns. That is, under this law it is assumed that only one factor of production is variable while other factors are fixed. As we increase the quantity of variable factor while keeping other factors constant, the output of variable factor may increase more than proportionately in the initial stages of production, but finally it will not increase proportionately. So this is given by Professor Benham. So as he states that as the proportion of one factor in a combination of factors is increased, after a point the average and marginal production of that factor will diminish. Though you increase the number of labors, later after some time the average and marginal product, it starts diminishing. So that is why it is called as law of variable proportion. And all units of factor input varied or homogeneous in nature. So this is an assumption that we are going to make here, and all the units have identical characteristics and equal efficiencies. The law of non-proportional output states that in the short run the returns variable factor will be more than the proportionate initially, and after a point returns will be less than the proportionate. And here we shall assume that once again we can assume that the law is more elaborate, and in the short run the amount of variable factor increases and the other things remain equal. So where we can calculate the total product, average product, and the marginal product. So till now what we have discussed now, the same is given here. So this we call as law of variable proportion. This is about production function with one variable proportion. Usually here MP will be more than 0, which is again greater than average product, and so that we call as increasing returns to the variable factor, and we can even see decreasing returns to the variable factor where MP is greater than 0 but AP is less than 0. Now let us start the next concept, that is production function with two variable inputs. This we shall take up in the next class. So in today's class we discussed about production function, production concept, and production function with respect to one variable that we call as law of variable proportion. Thank you.